Okay, and we're back. See, I was trashing on CONCACAF's tech issues, and then I had my own tech issues. That's on me. I apologize to everyone involved with the tech. I'm going to put this on social media so people actually will know where to go. Wait for a few more folks to join in. And once again, here we are. The Gold Cup draw took place tonight. A lot of people who were tuning in said, hey, when will you guys get to the point? When are you guys going to draw these teams? The answer was about 40 minutes, 30 to 40 minutes after the start. That's normal. We've now come to expect that from soccer draws. It seems to be what people think that we want. Let's talk about what's actually resulted from the draw, which is these four groups. In Group A, we've got Mexico, Costa Rica, now coached by a Mexican manager, the former manager of the Mexico national team, Miguel Herrera. Suriname, a team that's going to be adding new eligible players. It seems to be in this constant cycle of adding players who are eligible for Suriname, who can play for the nation, many of whom grew up playing in the Netherlands. Now eligible for Suriname thanks to the sports passport. The last Gold Cup was the first full Gold Cup that they've had since the good old days. And the debutants, why did I say that like that? The debut team, the Dominican Republic, rounding out Group A. In Group B, it's Canada, Honduras, El Salvador, and Curacao. Honduras, El Salvador, to me, seems to be a bit of a Gold Cup tradition. These Central American rivals seem to come together quite often in the Gold Cup. We'll see what city gets that match. That's going to be really interesting to see the schedule. Houston would be a sellout, but I'm not sure what games they have there until the final. LA would be another good place for it. Probably sell out wherever it is, to be honest. In Group C, it's Panama, Jamaica, Guatemala, and Guadeloupe. Gonna call that group like the upwardly mobile group. I mean, so the three teams in that group that are eligible to make the World Cup, the three teams in Group C that can make the FIFA World Cup, which are now Guadeloupe, all could make the World Cup. They all could be there in 2026. That's what their stated goal is for all three. Could be a pretty feisty one there. I guess if we're assigning a group of death, which is not my favorite thing to do, that's probably what I'd circle, especially Guadeloupe coming off the consecutive victories over Nicaragua to get to this point. That's going to be a really enticing group. To be fair, maybe the one that gets the least attention because the series head is not one of the North American countries. But when you look at the potential that those countries are going to qualify for the World Cup, that to me is quite interesting. And then Group D is made up of the United States, Haiti, Trinidad and Tobago, and Saudi Arabia, the guest team, a team that I'm already getting notes about. Why are they in here? You can look at the sponsorship graphic. I'll move myself so you can see, and that answers it pretty clearly, right? There's Aramco, which is a Saudi company, the PIF, which is the Saudi investment firm, Riyadh Air, an airline that does not exist yet, to my knowledge. When it was first announced that they were going to be sponsoring CONCACAF, they did not exist. So there you go. As I mentioned on the previous live stream that I tried to start and then managed to end, drop a note in the comments. Let me know what team you're a fan of, if you think your path is good or bad, if you think that a certain team has a better path than another. Remember that Mexico, Canada, Panama, United States were the head of series. Qatar, then Saudi. Who's got the blood money berth in 2027? Oof, problem out. We can only, you know what? We'll talk about it. We'll talk about it later. It is interesting that these future sponsors, these future World Cup hosts, seem to think that the best way to sort of launder their reputation is to sponsor CONCACAF soccer. The PIF deal is more holistic than the Qatar deal was. It goes all the way down to the youth levels. I think I would call it more driven at kind of getting people to have a positive impression of Saudi. We'll see. Qatar's first participation before the 2022 World Cup, that participation in the Gold Cup, they played well, and I think they were really thinking they were getting steam. And the second one, it seemed like nobody cared. It seemed like nobody cared. That's right. Owen Krukoff reminds that, yes, Saudi is also going to be in the next one. I've written plenty about that and done some videos as well. So, look, it's going to be an interesting. Owen puts Saudi invited in quotation marks. Yeah, has purchased a spot perhaps. It's going to be really interesting to see what team they send because they're going to be coming off World Cup qualification and they could either be locked into the World Cup and qualified. They could be coming off having to go into the next stage of the World Cup, which I think is kind of the most likely outcome right now. They maybe could still get eliminated. I don't necessarily think that's going to happen. But as a team, it's going to be interesting to see kind of what form they're in and how much they care about this tournament. I don't know. Do you want to come to the U.S. and play the U.S. and Haiti? And what's the crowd going to look like at Saudi Arabia, Haiti, man? Could be a decent game, but a lot of Haitians in the chat today on the CONCACAF stream, which was good to see. So again, kind of looking at which team you care about, which team you love. John from Conca Corner says Honduras. If it's a bad showing in this Gold Cup, he's worried for 2026. It was interesting because I think that you had two good halves of soccer between the four halves that they played against Bermuda in the Gold Cup qualification games. This Honduras team, sometimes you beat Mexico, and sometimes you struggle against Bermuda. I'm just getting news that Friday, tomorrow, we're going to get the schedule. We're going to get the venues tomorrow. If that happens, that'll be the quickest turnaround I remember in covering the Gold Cup. That doesn't mean it hasn't happened before, but that's the quickest that I remember. So we should get the venues and full schedule out by tomorrow for CONCACAF. That'll be good to see because it'll also help us start to plan our travel, to plan what people want to go to. If you want to look at just, you're a pure neutral and you want to say these are the best games in each group, I think Mexico, Costa Rica is definitely the most fascinating Group A. The Piojo factor, we knew at some point that if he stuck around long enough in Costa Rica, that Miguel Herrera, the former Mexico manager, would be playing against his native country. That's going to happen quick. It's going to happen in Group A. Costa Rica has this promising generation that we've been waiting to burst onto the scene for quite some time, and yet we still haven't seen them really transition. I think Herrera is pushing that generational change through. Look at what they have up top. Good attack. Manfred Ugalde, Martinez. There's forwards. Midfield, really good news to get Gallo back. At the back, still some experience in Calvo, some young players coming through as well. Is Keylor Navas coming back? I don't think so. But I mean, Sequeira's been good. So Mexico, Costa Rica, the spiciest game in Group A. For me, in Group B, it's got to be Honduras, El Salvador. El Salvador now coached by Bolillo Gomez, former Honduras coach, former coach of a lot of Central America. I think for El Salvador, this is such a critical Gold Cup as well. You know, John is talking about Honduras and saying that Los Catrachos, if they don't have a good showing, you start to worry, hey, how's it going to go in World Cup qualification? But for El Salvador, they also want to get back to the World Cup. Been a very long time, much longer than it's been for Honduras. Hired a new coach, but the player pool for me still isn't really deep enough to get there. In Group C, I'm going to say that Jamaica-Guatemala is the most interesting game to me. Again, kind of playing off that kind of contender status. Hey, how real is what we've seen? Jamaica with so many players based in the Premier League and the Championship. But can they break through? And then in Group D, Well, you have to say it's probably U.S. Trinidad and Tobago as the most interesting game, huh? Yeah, U.S. fans will know why. It was weird. There was like some kind of no banter is unforced in a Gold Cup draw or any draw, any soccer draw. But the banter was quite forced. It felt like there was a lot of banter between Marcelo Balboa and Ana, the host, the Honduran host, about like a very ancient Gold Cup, which is fine. But I think the World Cup qualification elimination might be a little more pertinent in the mind of the U.S. fans. So to me, that's probably the best game. Again, feel free to comment. Let me know what team you're pulling for, if you think the path is good or bad. Got a question from John at Conca Corner. How do you think the whole tournament being out west or farther west? It is all west of the Mississippi. Reported today that there's a quarterfinal at the least in Minnesota, probably that one at the U.S. Bank Stadium. Is that what it's called? The football stadium, the American football stadium. It's gonna be good. How can it affect crowds? We've seen some great Central American crowds on the East Coast in the last few Gold Cups. Yeah, I think the schedule, CONCACAF always tries to put the games in places where they'll get those types of crowds. Costa Rica often plays in New York. Honduras often plays in Houston. El Salvador in Houston or DC or sometimes LA. I think the diaspora communities will see what the current political situation does to people's desire to travel to see national teams, to go to these very public spaces and be seen as a fan of a Central American team or what. But my suspicion is that the crowds will still be very good. The Caribbean teams, which you mentioned, could get hurt. I think that's actually probably more significant. Honduras, El Salvador, if they're in LA or even Seattle or something, their diaspora base is big enough. But talk about like Jamaica, pretty far from Miami, Atlanta, other communities. But also, I don't know, like Copa America had games where there were not very many fans in the stadium, but that happened when I was covering Copa America in South America. So at a certain point, I think like CONCACAF has to convince people that their product is good enough on its own that that it's worth showing up to. Plain and simple. And I'm not saying they do a great job of that, but if you don't if you don't do that, if you don't convince people that they should care, that they should turn up, that this matters, then I don't know what to tell you. Good question though, John. I appreciate that. Trying to get one more little thing set up here on the streaming. I'm not sure that any of the seeded teams, the big four, the North American teams plus Panama, I'm not sure that any of them have a remarkably better or worse draw. That's kind of how they're acting as well in the draw with some of the legends. Again, I understand that a lot of that is kind of, you have to do that on TV. You kind of have to say, oh, this group is looking crazy or this one's looking good or bad. But overall, I think, yeah, they all look pretty even to me. Pachar, which teams play each other in the quarters when they advance out of the group? So it's first place A against second place D. So if the U.S. slips up, it is U.S. Mexico in the quarterfinal. So what does that make? It's first place B against. This is good. This is a good stream, right? Um, yeah, I'm breaking my mind right now, but uh, the U.S. and Mexico play in the quarterfinal if someone flips up and finishes second. I think it's B and C, and then C winner goes to A. But yeah, don't quote me on that, Charo. Sorry. I wish I had a better answer for you. Christopher, oh boy. Sorry, man. I thought I was going to have your last name better. Christopher Alpha B. Huh? As someone in Minnesota, I might go to a quarterfinal at US Bank, which again was reported today by one of the local outlets there in Minnesota. I might go to the quarterfinal at US Bank if the prices aren't insane, but I have a suspicion that won't be the case. Yeah, maybe, although it's a big building, right? So in theory, you would hope that it would be a kind of a inclusive ticket pricing. I mean, that's the thing. Like we're talking about, hey, well, are these diaspora communities going to fill the stadiums? Is this going to be, a big a festival of football? Is this what are we looking at here? And yeah, like the question seems to be, it seems that event organizers are happy to have empty seats and more money, whereas like journalists like myself and fans who like having great atmospheres say, why don't you just make the tickets a little less and fill the stadium? It just seems like that's not the priority for a lot of people now who are running these competitions, these events. So yeah, I mean it's a bit of a bummer. Not a bit, it's a huge bummer, right? But um, that's where the organizers of these tournaments seem to be at. Again, I'm hearing that by tomorrow we should have the full schedule. We should know which games are where, which is exciting and good. Will make it easier as well to react to what's going on. Also, if I could have answered Pacharo's question, I could say, hey, this looks like a probable quarterfinal. But I didn't do that. I didn't do that research. Yeah, that's on me. That's on me. Again, happy to take your questions on what your team's path looks like, despite the fact that I didn't know the crosses. Um, yeah, when I look at this draw, I think there's a lot of good games. I think we talk about the health of the region, the health of CONCACAF. Is this region doing good? Are things moving forward? I'm not sure if it's because CONCACAF is doing something or not, but I do think that overall, when you look at the quality of the region, I think because of individual teams uh, making an effort, it does seem to me like this is a very deep Gold Cup field. I'm not sure totally what to expect from Saudi, like I said, what's coming off the World Cup qualification that they're going to be doing in Asia. How seriously are they going to take it? Are players going to care? That's something I still haven't worked out, but I think it's going to be quite interesting to see the depth in this field. Pacharo, a question that I can answer. What feels like the group of death to me? I think Group C looks like just kind of the feistiest group. We expect big things from Panama. They made it to the Nations League final. They made it to the previous Gold Cup final. And clearly, like, they are a good team, but I still have questions about their depth. And I still think that there's chances, there's moments where they don't perform as well as they could slash should. So when I look at a team that might get picked off, uh, yeah, I think about Panama and just how good Jamaica is as well. I think is also pretty critical when you talk about a team that should make the World Cup in this next round of qualification. I include Jamaica in that. So um, yeah, to me that looks like the group of death, Group C. Going live on TikTok as well if people are wondering what's happening. So what's up, TikTok? Live reacting to the Gold Cup draw. Groups are on the screen, as you can see. Talking with Pacharo over on YouTube, asking about what feels like the group of death. I'm saying Group C: Panama, Jamaica, Guatemala, and Guadeloupe. Guadeloupe, the only team that is not eligible to qualify for the FIFA World Cup. The other three teams alive, not only alive, but alive and well in their World Cup qualification group. So I really think that that's the hardest group. I think it's the toughest. You could maybe make an argument for Group B. I think you could maybe say that Group B is also a really difficult group because of Honduras and El Salvador both being there. But I have so many questions about those teams. I don't think they've been as impressive in World Cup qualification. El Salvador not getting the results they wanted to, bringing in Bolillo Gomez. He hasn't minced any words since he got there, kind of saying that the domestic league isn't good enough, the resources aren't good enough. So I think that when you look at what's the group of death, what's the hardest group to me, it's Group C. Panama, Jamaica, Guatemala, and Guadeloupe. I mean, Guadeloupe 1-0 results in both games against Nicaragua. I understand Nicaragua is not the strongest Central American team. That shows because they're not even in this tournament because they lost those games to Guadeloupe. But the fact that they're able to hang with those Central American teams, I think, um, shows that they can hang too. So I don't think there's any easy games in Group C. I unfortunately think that it'll probably kind of get overshadowed by some of the other groups. But we'll be talking about it here on this channel. We'll be talking about it on the newsletter Getting CONCACAF. Panama, Jamaica, Guatemala, Guadeloupe. I love that group. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. John at Conca Corner asks, who are the players from some of the teams that aren't favorited that we should watch for? Suriname, Dominican Republic, Guadeloupe, Curacao. I'm actually really interested in Curacao, Dick Advocat being the manager. Some of the sort of like old school players that got Curacao to this point, and when I say this point, I don't just mean the Gold Cup. I mean to being considered a serious soccer country. Um, Both Vacunas, like, are they still going to be playing? Is that going to be something that goes well for Curacao? Is it time to do a youth movement? Is Dick Advocat the guy to lead that movement? I think that stuff is really interesting to watch. So I'd probably pick one of those. For Suriname, if Geraldo Becker is healthy and in, I think he's a huge X factor. I think you saw them miss him in the March matches. Yes, they got through. Yes, they got here. But the fact that Suriname didn't have Becker up top, I think was part of the reason that they didn't beat Martinique as convincingly as I was expecting them to. So I definitely watch for him. Dominican Republic, the debutants in this tournament. I keep saying debutants weird. I keep saying debut. I don't. The new team, the new boys in the tournament is the Dominican Republic. It's their first ever appearance. Well, a player I'll watch is Marcelo. I mean, he's gonna be in the Dominican Republic squad for the first time at a major tournament ever. Showed up for the friendly matches played in the second one against Puerto Rico. So look, they've been wanting him to come in for forever, forever, and he's here. We'll see if he shows up for the Gold Cup. But you would think, why else would you join? I mean, he hasn't played for a club in more than, I think it's like 18 months or something. Gold Cup is as good a showcase as you're going to get if you really want to get back to professional football. So could be interesting in Group A if him and some others show up. But I do think that Group C is the toughest. I really like that group. Let's talk a little bit about the United States. Again, taking your questions. If you're on YouTube, if you're on TikTok, you can drop your country or your national team in the comments. Talk about the path. Talk about what's going on. But let's talk a little bit about the United States. When we look at their group, I saw some people alleging, of course, the chat in the official draw live stream was something else. But I saw people alleging that the U.S. got the easiest draw because of collusion and corruption. I will say it does look like the easiest group. Group D, the U.S., Haiti, Trinidad and Tobago, and Saudi Arabia. Again, we just have so many questions about Saudi Arabia after playing an Asian qualification. How are they going to approach this tournament? Do they want to be in this tournament? Of course, clearly the Saudi government does. You look at the sponsors, Aramco and the PIF. We know that the government wants to be there, but do the players? Maybe that's enough motivation that the government wants them to be there. But so a lot of questions about Saudi. A Trinidad and Tobago team currently led by Dwight York. We learned today that they're going to get great preparation for the tournament, at least good preparation in the tournament, playing in that Unity Cup in May against Jamaica, Ghana, Nigeria, all in London. That's going to be really fun. I think it'll be a good atmosphere. So Trinidad and Tobago should come into the tournament well. And Haiti, like quietly, they can't play any home games. And they didn't have to go through Gold Cup qualification. I actually played a friendly against Azerbaijan. I did a video on this channel talking about the surprising soccer links between Haiti and Azerbaijan. They won that game relatively easily. It's a team. It's a sleeper team, right? When you talk about teams that are flying, that could fly under the radar, Haiti to me is a big sleeper. I understand the analysis of, well, they haven't accomplished what Jamaica has, which is another team from that pot. Costa Rica knows Mexico well. Miguel Herrera knows Mexico well. So I get that analysis, but I think that Haiti could be a quietly very strong team because when you look at their recent results, you look at what they did in the Nations League, they had no problems. No problems at all. I mean, they steamrolled their Nations League group undefeated. So Haiti had a really, really good performance in Nations League. So this U.S. group doesn't look as difficult as past U.S. Gold Cup groups. When you think about 2023, but also like this is a Gold Cup that the U.S. has to take seriously. Pedrog in the comments is saying, "Hey, if the U.S. didn't host this tournament, they might not even qualify for the World Cup." That's how down bad the U.S. is. I'm not sure I quite agree with that. I hear you. I understand. I think they would qualify, but this is a tournament the U.S. has to take seriously, and I think if Mauricio Pochettino wants to be seen as the guy, the manager that he was billed as leading into the 2026 World Cup, they need a good Gold Cup. All of the World Cup hosts, I think, are under more significant pressure going into the Gold Cup than they usually are because if you don't have a good performance, people are going to say, hey, you still have time to change managers. You still have time to change the project. You still have time to replace managers like you did after Copa America. I don't think that's a successful formula. If you are replacing your manager after Copa America and then replace the manager after the Gold Cup, you'd have no consistency, no project. It's probably the players that are the problem and not the manager. But the U.S. could have a deceptively difficult group in Group D with Haiti, Trinidad and Tobago, and a Saudi team that will be coming in off Asian qualification. We don't know if they're going to be riding the high of making the 2026 World Cup, if they'll be frustrated that they have more qualifications to come. We just don't know what Saudi's mood is going to be in, what the team is going to look like. Are they going to bring all the best players? It's a long summer in the U.S. On the West Coast, though, does that help or hurt the flight? It depends on the route that Saudi takes, which, again, we don't know. So an interesting Group D. Doing a little reaction to the Gold Cup draw. Again, I'm told that we should get the venues and schedule. Well, the venues we know. We should get the schedule where it shows which matches are going to be at which venues. We should get that tomorrow, Friday. So we'll have something on this channel here. Make sure you follow, subscribe, do all the things so you can see that, the reactions that we do, that I do, to the schedule. Again, like some really, really good opening matches that are going to be fascinating to figure out where they are because that atmosphere could really change. In Group B, we have the Honduras-El Salvador rivalry, the Central American rivalry, a lot of history there. They played each other again relatively recently, but if that game's in Houston, I went to one in Houston last Gold Cup. Last Gold Cup, 2 Gold Cups ago. They kind of blend together. There's a lot of Gold Cups. But great atmosphere in Houston. Could put it in LA. Everything west of the Mississippi this year because the FIFA Club World Cup is going to be going on at the same time. So some of those players that you thought were going to be in this tournament probably going to be at the Club World Cup over on the East Coast. This tournament's all taking place on the West Coast. The road to Houston, the final at NRG Stadium in Houston for the first time ever. Again, like if anybody who gets there probably will have a good home support. Houston's a big international city. But if like El Salvador or Honduras makes a run, ooh boy, it's going to be a crazy atmosphere. Mexico, of course, probably a favorite to get there. So we'll see which teams make it to Houston on the old road to Houston. Again, we're just chatting about what the Gold Cup groups look like, just drawn in Miami about an hour ago. A lot of pre-show, a lot of chat. Legends, Canada's Dwayne De Rosario, Jorge Campos from Mexico, Blas Perez from Panama, and Marcelo Balboa, the defender from the United States. It was fine. People like you and me, people that are soccer fans, we just want them to tell us who's playing so we can start dreaming and start planning our trips, right? But the broadcasters and the Confederation, they like to have a little song and dance. And it's fine. Everything worked out fine. We got our groups. I've been chatting a little bit about what I think is going to be the most difficult group. Group A, Mexico, Costa Rica, Suriname, Dominican Republic. That's not my most difficult one. Group B, Canada, Honduras, El Salvador, Curacao. Tampoco. Panama, Jamaica, Guatemala, Guadeloupe. If we have to assign a group of death, that's the one I'm assigning. I just think that all four teams really have a chance to advance, and those three teams that are eligible to make the World Cup, they're all hanging in there. Let me know what your team is, can analyze the path, talk about the potential matchups a little bit, or if there's something you're curious about, you want to know, feel free to drop a comment. Stream for about 5 more minutes here, probably live on YouTube and TikTok. If you follow me on one and not the other, I actually kind of post the same stuff on both, but feel free to check out Jon Arnold FC. Subscribe on YouTube. It helps me out. If you got TikTok and you're on YouTube right now, Jon Arnold FC, help me out. Help the channel grow, help more fans of local soccer, of soccer in the North American, Central American, and Caribbean region find this page dedicated to telling those stories. Going to be a lot of Gold Cup content coming. Again, I'm told that the matchups will come out tomorrow, that we'll know where the games are being played, where the group games are being played. It's going to be a big announcement as well, because as far as I know, and maybe I missed it, but I don't think I have, we don't know where the semifinals are either. My suspicion is one of them will be here in DFW, where I live, in Dallas-Fort Worth, at AT&T Stadium. Makes a lot of sense with the final being in Houston. Easy trip down I-45. I mean, there's usually a lot of traffic, but it's fine. So my suspicion is one of them will be there. Today, an outlet in Minnesota reported that U.S. Bank, the Vikings' home stadium, will host a quarterfinal. I would think that the U.S. might go through that path. They've often gotten sort of a northern path. We know that Canada is also going to be a BC place. We know that Mexico is going to open against, they're going to open the tournament at SoFi. They also dropped a ball. CONCACAF dropped the Molten Gold Cup ball. Cool. That's not. It's totally fine if that's your thing. I've never gotten that excited. I do think that a ball is sometimes iconic when it comes to a tournament. Obviously, the Jabuani, number one. But sometimes you see a certain ball design and you remember the good old days. Or, oh, I remember that ball was the one they used that tournament. It looks nice, but I don't know. I'm more into the jerseys and then, of course, the teams on the field. So we'll be keeping track of that. Lots of y'all joining on TikTok, but not a lot of y'all commenting on who your favorite team is and what you think their path looks like. If you think it's a good result, a bad result, a tough draw. Oh, yeah, John Lane over on YouTube. I just put your full name out there. Whoops. No. John from Conca Corner says, no Volar at the draw. That's not entirely true. They did a little segment with like the cartoon, but we didn't see I was going to say the human Volar, the CONCACAF mascot, but that's not quite right, is it? The mascot form of Volar. The Botarga. Is that what you say? I don't know. Hopefully we'll see Volar at every stadium during the CONCACAF Gold Cup this summer. Hopefully we'll see you here on this channel, the IRL Volar. Hopefully we can do a video about Volar. Man, that'd be goals. If you don't know who Volar is the somewhat strange mascot that CONCACAF announced. He has a feather for every CONCACAF nation, and it has their flag. I don't know, man. It's not for us. It's not for the soccer fans, and that's fine. It's fun. It's funny. But yeah, appreciate y'all joining on YouTube, on TikTok. Had fun reacting to the draw. Make sure you subscribe or follow for more videos about the Gold Cup. Again, hopefully I have something tomorrow once the matches are announced on maybe what looks like the spiciest and also like best atmosphere, I think is going to be something we can talk about. The paths, how does the bracket work? We'll talk about that. And also just kind of break down what these groups look like. I'm making hard eyes at Group C. You heard it. You heard it all stream. I'm making hard eyes at Group C. Before we wrap up, Jonathan Mayer, Trinidad and Tobago fan, he was hoping for Curacao to make the group doable. Unfortunate for Saudi. Unfortunate for Saudi because they got to play the Soccer Warriors. Dwight York's Soccer Warriors, I think. We'll see. I think Saudi Arabia being the guest team, we know why they're there. We know it's commercial, but we just don't know what the actual team on the field is going to look like. Not saying they're a good or bad team, even on the field generally. I'm just saying that to play in World Cup qualification. Almost all these CONCACAF countries are also playing in World Cup qualification. Not Mexico, Canada, U.S., but like Panama has games, Guatemala has games, Jamaica has games. If you're eligible in CONCACAF, you basically have to play these games in June. Then they're going to come to the Gold Cup, so it'll affect CONCACAF's team's vibe and momentum and mood as well. But I think it's one thing to play a game in Jamaica, in Guatemala, and fly to the U.S. and say, okay, it's a new tournament. And another thing to have games in Saudi and then fly to the US, get your bearings, and play against a bunch of teams you're not familiar with at all. Going to be interesting. I don't think Trinidad and Tobago gets out of group. Well, it's a good group. It's a good group too. I think it's easy to underestimate Haiti because we just haven't heard from them in a while. But when you look at their recent results, people should start getting a little nervous. U.S. fans too. Everyone get nervous. That's going to wrap the stream. I appreciate y'all joining. Again, follow for more on the CONCACAF region. I got some Liga MX stuff coming out tomorrow. I got some CONCACAF Champions Cup coming out tonight. I got some Gold Cup stuff coming tomorrow as well, in addition to this reaction, in addition to this stream. And then it's all downhill from here. We're going to talk about the Gold Cup as it approaches, as different things happen. Hopefully not too many, but as guys get injured, we're going to be rolling on everything going on in the CONCACAF region. You can follow here. And also, if you're into it, check out my newsletter, which is called Getting CONCACAF. You can search on Google or Bing or whatever your preferred search engine is. Getting CONCACAF. You can check that out. And you can subscribe. It's free. There's also a paid tier. You can also follow here, subscribe here. Appreciate y'all joining. Take care. We'll talk soon about the CONCACAF region.